This is HighIntensityBusiness.com with Lawrence Neal, helping you achieve your health and fitness goals. Become a great personal trainer and build your high-intensity strength training business.
This episode is brought to you by ARX, the most innovative, efficient, and effective all-in-one exercise machines I have ever seen. I was really impressed with my ARX workout. The intensity and adaptive resistance was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I love how the machine enables you to increase the negative load to fatigue target muscles more quickly, and I love how the workouts are effortlessly quantified. The software tracks maximum force output, rate of work, total amount of work done, and more in front of you on screen, allowing you to compete with your previous performance to give you and your clients real-time motivation. The ARX uses a computer-controlled motor to give you the exact amount of resistance your clients need 100% of the time. This means that the resistance can never become dangerous, is intuitive and simple to use, and can provide you with all of the results you and your clients are looking for in a fraction of the time. ARX is highly effective and efficient in delivering all of the benefits of exercise, including increased strength, muscle mass, cardiovascular conditioning, bone mineral density, and injury recovery. As well as being utilized by many high-intensity trainers to deliver highly effective and efficient workouts to their clients, ARX comes highly recommended by world-class trainers and brands, including Bulletproof, Tony Robbins, and Ben Greenfield Fitness. To find out more about ARX and get $500 off install when you place an order, please go to arxfit.com and mention HIB, that's High Intensity Business, in the How Did You Hear About Us field. So again, to get $500 off install when you place an order, head on over to arxfit.com and enter HIB in the How Did You Hear About Us field. Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to HighIntensityBusiness.com. This is episode 258. Today's guest is returning guest, Art Ligtvoet, my good friend. Art is a trained conductor and training instructor based in the Netherlands and former MEDEX therapist for Kaiser Training. He also runs his own business, Art Ligtvoet Training Therapy Nutrition, which focuses on helping people restore metabolic health through an efficient and practical application concerning muscle training and nutrition. The exercise program takes place at Art's private facility, and his nutrition counseling is based on the Body Med system. Art, welcome back to the podcast. Good to chat to you again.
Hi, Lawrence. Thank you for having me back. I'm really excited for this one.
You're welcome. So let's just start with the obvious, shall we? How's things in the Netherlands? What's going on with this silly virus?
Well, like almost everywhere else, we are. I think nobody knows exactly what to do. So politicians do what they have to do, follow each other, and topping each other with constrictions in this case. From the one side, I can understand it. Nobody wants to get blamed to not having done things properly. I think they should have done things much earlier. So this economic disaster doesn't take place, because that is what will happen in the future, in my opinion, and not only my opinion. I mean, many others are concerned about that too. That now they have to act and have almost a lockdown here. And I think the real damage of the virus will not be the virus itself, but the economic disaster for many people. Lots of depressions, suicides, I guess, will come in the future. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, we've obviously, I think you posted on the blog about your thoughts about the healthcare system. So you're kind of the view that, you know, if the healthcare system was fixed before all this happened, or you know, in a stronger position, then it may be able to cope with what's going on better. We might not be in this situation. Is that how you feel about that?
Yeah, because the reason why we have this, let's call it a lockdown, it's not officially lockdown here, but many people are at home. We can leave the houses, we can do our shopping, at least for food, etc. Shops are open, but nobody will go to a city because all the cafes and restaurants, etc., are closed. so you can't get anything to drink or like that. So it's not a fun to be in a city right now, I guess. But we have still some freedom, but it will be more constricted in the near future. But the reason for this is you know it, to flatten the curve. But why do we have to flatten the curve? Because the medical, the hospitals, for instance, they can't handle so many sick people. And always there is, of course, a ceiling. But in this case, I think the years of constricting healthcare and how the hospitals work, the virus now does in an accelerated form show us where the problem is, the bottleneck. And now it's all hands in the air. We have to save the hospitals and the bed, making sure there are enough beds for people that are really ill. I understand that's difficult to work there, but the people that are working there are working really hard with risk for their own health and the health of their families. And so as they did in the past also. But the rewards from government, for instance, have never been there as it should be. And now it's an open wound that shows itself. That's how I see it. And did they their job better under the same circumstances, with the same hospitals and the same amount of beds? I think the spread of the virus would be more constricted. And then the economy would run more as it is now. And that would in the long term be better. But I'm just a train conductor. Nobody asked me.
Well, I did. I'm interested in your opinion.
Okay.
I hear you. I don't know what you think about this, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but something I've been thinking about is, we often talk about on this podcast, and I guess in the health and fitness, internet space, we talk about how, there's a huge burden on healthcare long before this, because there's so many sick people, so many people that are, predisposed to the big four illnesses that tend to kill most of us, neurodegenerative disease, diabetes, cancer, heart disease. And, if we were healthier, we had better lifestyles, better exercise, better nutrition, that we'd save a ton of money on a global setting, within healthcare. And us may have the capacity to cope with a virus like this and to cope with the inflow. I mean, I don't know if that's true. I'm not an expert on healthcare systems. But what do you make of that? Do you think there's some truth to that? Do you think that's is it because they're already overburdened, right? So that they can't take on the extra load? That's
for sure. To make clear, I'm not a health expert in that context neither. As I told you, I see it as an open wound, and the coronavirus is really mixing in it. And you're correct. I mean, people are getting sicker and sicker over decades now. And actually, what I see is that, let me tell it this way: not everyone that is sick in a metabolic sense is its own fault, but for the most it is. And they are now more vulnerable to catch the virus and or not to deal properly with it. They get more sick, they go to the hospital. And then you have the category of people, let's say above 80, sick or not. They are also in a high category of people that can catch the virus and die from it. But I have a problem with the fact that the people that are in their 40s, 50s, or 60s and always lived like only party, eating, let's call it a bad lifestyle. And now they are whining because they are a risk group. And they also lay in hospitals. And maybe if this goes on, the medical staff has to make decisions. Do we treat a younger person with that who lived a bad lifestyle, or do we help an older people? And the older people are mostly at that high risk that they won't survive. So I'm glad I don't have to make these choices, but the choices somewhere will have to be made in the future, near future. But the problem I have with it is these older people, they have paid for the healthcare their whole life. And now it's time to collect, so to speak. And then probably the choice will be made to let die the older people, and let's see that we have the younger ones. And the younger ones that had, by choice, a bad lifestyle. And that's what I have a problem with. We all pay the price for it now, because the people that made their choice over the years to live a healthy lifestyle, by that probably, I say probably, I got less risk from the virus, maybe just like a normal flu, and we can stay at home because we are healthier, stronger for the most part. We also have to pay in an economic sense the price. And I don't think that people will teach a lesson from this, because if this is over, many will think, see, we better party on because life can be really short. So I don't think it will change anything in that respect. But that's the problem I have with it. We have to make a choice, not we, but the medical staffs in hospitals. Not enough beds, not enough ventilators. What do we do with the old people or the young people? And if you have paid your whole life in medical care and they put you aside and let you die, I have a problem with it.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. You're not seeing, certainly in the mass media, you're not seeing any discussion about what constitutes as someone being healthy. I don't know if you follow Paul Saladino, Dr. Paul Saladino.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure you like his work. I think he quoted a stat, or it might be in his book, that something like 87% of people, I'm not sure, I think that's in the US, I'm not sure if that's global, have some sort of metabolic dysfunction.
Sure.
But yeah, right. And you and I would agree with that. But yeah, you don't, there's a lot of people walking around who clearly are not in optimal health, who think they are because society says they're okay. And if they do get the virus and have a really bad reaction or die, that's no fault of their own. And I think this is really bad because I think this whole situation could be not necessarily completely avoided, but certainly mitigated.
Milder.
Right, much more milder if everyone was in far better position health wise. For one, there'd be much less impact on healthcare pre-virus anyway, and much fewer cases, much more fewer hospitalized cases, and they would have the capacity to actually help those people. I think maybe that's very obvious to a lot of people, but I think it's only obvious in like the health and fitness online kind of science-focused people. I just feel like the mass media or any media is really even talking about that at all because it's kind of controversial, right? It's putting the blame on people, which they don't want to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Everybody should have the possibility to live as they want. And if you get sick, there are also medicines, and that's it. So, but you see now exactly there is an explosion, right? In a few months by that virus that shows us exactly that open wound that is that has been there for decades and is growing and growing. And now suddenly something happened like this virus, and it shows it up immediately where the problems are, where the bottlenecks are. You can go on discussions about all kinds of measurements and rules to deal with it, but the problem was there already long before.
Yeah.
And that's mostly also, if you take it philosophically, that's also what happens with some politics that are brewing under the radar, and all of a sudden, call it socialist ideas, and all of a sudden you have a dictatorship. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that has been the case in many countries. Europe has its history too for that. It's not that happened suddenly, but it was there already for decades, and it's growing. It's a snowball effect.
It's gradual.
And I see this international health care problem, people being more sick and less fit. That's also something like a snowball effect. But now the virus is there, and that shows it immediately where the problems are. And now we have to deal with it. And as I said, I think I'm worried about the future for many people in an economic sense, and that will have a big influence on their life. And therefore, I think, and it's not just me that thinks that, but the depressions will be arising.
Yeah.
And with it, suicides.
Yeah,
Because if you lose your job.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, if you lose your business, a job, okay. But if you have business and your whole, your everything you own is put in that business, and that's taken you away right now in a few months. I know from the past there were these farmers. Mostly it was the pig. How do you name it in English? They are pig farms. They're raising pigs.
Same thing.
You know what?
I don't know. I have no idea. I would just say the same thing. Pig farms.
Okay. Yeah, there was sickness spreading on these farms, so they had to kill all the pigs on the farms. And with it, taken away the life existence of these farmers. And many have killed themselves for financial problems. I mean, and I think this will happen to a lot of people worldwide too now.
Yeah, I think, it's bleak to say, but I agree. It's a very sad event. I was talking to a friend the other day who's had a client walk in and just broke down into tears because she had an events company that literally went out of business overnight. And that's obviously just, that's happening at scale. And, we're seeing it in personal training right now. We're seeing obviously a lot of the studios close, if not all of them at this point. The one positive to take out of this is that a lot of them are understanding that there's an opportunity to serve virtually, temporarily, if not, we don't know how long that's going to be for. And the proactive among us are really doing that. And that's great to see. And obviously I'm helping people do that as well to transition to virtual. I know it's not necessarily a like-for-like replacement for that in-person personal training that we all love. But it's, I guess, the next best thing. So, I know, I don't know about you, Art, but it's all people are talking about. And I'm sure you're probably sick of talking about this now, aren't you? And
yes.
Given your...
correct.
So I'm sorry to start the podcast
problem.
off on this. I just wanted to know what was going on in your part of the world, really.
No, but it's normally to talk about it right now, but it's nothing else anymore. I work on the trains. So as for yesterday, we only have yet 7% of travelers on the trains compared to normal.
Wow.
So that's not that much. And the reason for this, firstly, because the government orders now by law the people to stay as much as possible at home. We have to take distance from each other if we are outside or in a shop of 1.5 meter. Mm-hmm. That will be controlled. So there's almost Big Brother watching you. But I can understand the reason for it. And on the trains, the same. People are asked to only go by train if they have to do so for their job. And their jobs must be needed for now. You don't have to.
You're still working then? You're still working on the trains?
Yeah,
right?
Sure. Yeah. We have our a new channel, and that means I have a call-up shift, and that will be tomorrow. And then I stay at home, and if they call me, if somebody else gets sick on the train, I have to work there. Then I have to be there in an hour at my starting place. And other days, I'm just on the train. We don't have to train to work as normal. Just make sure the stop and start procedures are correctly, so the train can go. And to be on a train, should something else happen, so that somebody is there. We are really, really asked to not contact the passengers. Stay away from them from a certain distance. Wash our hands like crazy. I mean, I have no skin on my hands anymore from that. Because we have to touch a lot of nuts and doors and all that stuff. And
Sure.
they don't want to take any risk. And might you have some kind of just a running nose, you have to stay at home because the risk is too great to spread the virus via colleagues. Is somebody of your family at home sick, you also have to stay at home.
Now, let me ask you the most important question here. Are you still able to access your facility to train?
I live above my facility. So that's, I'm really, I was, just yesterday, I talked with my wife about it. I mean, we have a reasonable big house, a garden, and our facility downstairs. But imagine if you're living on an apartment of just a few square meters and you have to stay at home at a total lockdown.
Well, we have a very, very tiny rental here, so it's not as small as that. But it's I can only imagine that would be pretty challenging.
I would get nuts, I think, and maybe I was joking, but I said, okay, we have you also have to look for the benefits of this virus, right? The positive side.
Absolutely.
It sounds a bit harsh, but if a lot of older people die, we have to pay less for their retirement. And on the other side, a lot of people are staying at home. And mostly if they have to stay at home, there will be a baby boom in a year or so because they have nothing else to do. And these kids that are born then will take care of our retirement by the time we have to catch it. So that's my positive side of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's clearly lots of negatives, but there is lots of positives. There's lots of good being shown in the world right now. There's people are talking about how things like air pollution and river pollution sort of cleaning up. And there are a lot of opportunities from a business perspective. I know that's hard to hear because if you've got a traditional business or a brick and mortar business, then obviously this can kill your business and cause you to either radically diversify and pivot, or have to spin up something new, or go on the benefits or what have you, or get employment. But there is always a lot of opportunity in times like this, and it's just being able to be open to that and putting on those I call it opportunity glasses. Just changing your mindset, and that's what I've been trying to do, because you can only sit around and be miserable about the situation for so long, and you've got to get on and change your perspective and try and be productive and try and help others, right? So I think that's the approach I'm taking.
Yeah, that's correct, and that's a healthy view. But from my experience, I can tell you, and you know that by yourself also, suppose you lose your job, but also your financial income, so nobody is taking care of you anymore. What then? How positive can you then look for opportunities? I mean, if your primary life circumstances, like a house and food, isn't anymore there, then we have a bigger problem.
But if you've got government benefits, you've got all the stimulus coming in from the governments to help. Like I'm hopeful that will help people that are really in need like that.
Yeah, that's possible.
I know it's not the same as having their business income, but it's something.
No, that's correct, and that's of course in most countries what will happen indeed.
Yeah.
But not for everyone. I mean, all the office workers are actually at home in the Netherlands now. So the instances that are via the government do these payments and registrations, they don't have enough people to get all the work done at the moment, because there's an explosion of people that are asking for help.
Of course, yeah.
And they are lagging behind before the virus anyway to help enough people.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how they manage it. They are talking about a help of 3 months or so. Maybe it helps, maybe not. I don't know, but I'm for sure there are people that won't get enough help or not in time.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have another problem, and the government can help as much as it wants. It has to take that money from us afterwards. It has to come somewhere from, right? I mean, no production is no income, and
that's an interesting point.
Yeah, they can spend money only what they take from us. So what that for the future will mean, I don't know for sure, but I think it will be hard.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll say one more thing on this, and then we'll move on, because we're gonna consume all the time we have talking about this bloody virus. But one thing I will say, which I think I've personally found very, very helpful, is there's a great book, one of the greatest books ever written, called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and it's always a book I've always turned to, and I've read it probably 2 or 3 times at this point. It's a book I've always turned to when I've had anything really bad happen to me or feeling sorry for myself. And I read it, when I had a pretty dark day recently, as many of us have had with this virus. And I read that book, and it immediately put me in a much better mood, gave me perspective. And that book's basically all about Victor, who is the main character of the book. It's a non-fiction, and he basically tells a story of his time as a prisoner in Auschwitz, a Jewish prisoner. I know you would know us, but I'm just sort of telling the listeners. And it's about all the terrible, absolutely awful, horrific things that happened to him and that he witnessed. And it just puts a lot of this in perspective. I'm not playing down the hardships people are going through right now, but I think as bad as this is, most of us are going to be okay, and that's my perspective. Yeah. So
that's correct.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So let's move on, because I had some questions that I've been thinking about asking you, and I listened to both our podcasts today, Art. So I listened to both of them this morning, and it's so funny to listen back to those. Obviously, they were a few years ago now, and sometimes I cringe at some of the things I say, and because it's really weird hearing you. Hearing your younger self say something which you perhaps know better now, And one of the things that interests me is you were fortunate enough to have a few consultations with Mike Mentzer, and I'd love to hear, from your perspective, what were the biggest takeaways, things that Mentzer taught you, like aha moments that you had from those consultations?
The most important one is think for yourself. And find out, experiment. The other thing is not less is better, not more is better, precise is better. To find that out for yourself. It's not for everyone the same. That changed. I remember that very recently, and changed my work. Not only because of that, I was changing my workout regime anyway, but that was an influence I remembered. Speaking to him himself, I was very much younger than me at that time, it felt great to speak to a hero, even if it was by phone. Train hard. Yeah, I think that's the context of it all. Going to the training advice, it was actually fairly simple. Just take each set to utter failure, recover. If you don't get stronger, you're not recovered. And I believed in that. I changed my workouts. But I've coming back to that and thought, not so sure anymore. So about 2 years ago. Actually, before our last podcast, I started doubting myself, my beliefs, and I did that on purpose. Because if you hang in too long in something and you just say yes, 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 I think it's time to think out of the box, even for experiment and learning, even if you're wrong and you were right before. At least I need that. So I was doubting my beliefs, and I thought, okay, let's start the experiment. And the time for me was there, not being professionally anymore in the industry. But I had to do that on a slow pace because shortly after our last conversation, I lost my job in the fitness industry, and I was without a job. So that's why I told you at the start of this podcast that I see the problems for the people that have no money anymore, no income. I was shortly before that. I know how it feels and how fast you can go downward. I mean, if you have to pay your rent, your income, to make sure your family has food, and all of a sudden, what you thought was a stable income is gone. And now you can go to get an income from the government for a part, and looking for another job. And if you then see where you can get, the jobs are not that great here in the area. But I took anything I could just to provide income. And luckily, I got the opportunity to work as a train conductor. It was a hard time, difficult time also regarding the education. I had to pass exams at my age, and it was not easy, but it was worthwhile. And I can tell you, I'm really, really happy now that I have my contract there.
Good for you, mate.
And if I did stay, let me tell you this: if I took the other route and trying to live from my own fitness facility, or starting something in a franchise concept, and that would be really bad for me now. So I made a good decision, and I'm happy with it. I was happy before the coronavirus with it. I feel really confident in my job. And I'm glad I still can do something in the fitness industry in my own private facility.
I'm guessing you're not training people currently at your facility though, right?
Yeah, 2 or 3.
Okay, so people are still coming.
Yeah, I have a couple that I train and one other person. And I still have a few old customers that are trained by themselves. So it's not an open facility. I know when they are there, so I have some kind of open hours, and they just train the way they want. I don't care. And the others I train once a month, and the rest of the month they train by themselves. So I have a controlled training with them once in a month, and they want that. It gives them security, and we change things here and there. And that's what I do at the moment, and that's also what it will stay. I'm not interested in to have more customers because it's not doable for me. And this way I can keep it also clean in the sense of who is entering my facility and with whom I have to deal. I'm not anymore almost begging for clients. So if somebody thinks I'm a nutcase, so be it. Then just stay outside. It's no problem. I have my security income and my hobby.
Good for you. Yeah, I totally respect that. I know we've had a lot of back and forth on email and I think on the blog and comments where, you and I have challenged one another. And I think that's actually really healthy. And I think sometimes obviously tone gets lost in email, and email's not always the best format for those sorts of things. And I think in the future, I don't think it's probably the ideal time to be talking about your viewpoint on some of the fast-growing hit franchises and businesses, and your thoughts on value to the person versus trying to scale and grow a big business. I do think there's a place for that, and I want to talk to you about that. But I think we'll put that on a podcast when the market starts to recover and the studios start to reopen, where it's a little bit more relevant. I hope you're okay with that.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by our sponsor, ARX. Are you looking to create a cutting-edge, high-intensity training facility? Are you confused on what equipment to use or how to separate yourself from the masses? Well, then ARX Fit might be the answer you're looking for. I asked Mike Polano from ARX a few questions about how ARX machines are challenging the status quo of the exercise industry around the globe. Mike, if you could, give the listeners a quick summary of why ARX is so different from the traditional machines or tools they're used to seeing in most exercise facilities.
ARX is totally different than anything you've seen before. This isn't just another weight stack machine. We've looked at the last 40 years of exercise technology and used that knowledge to create something entirely new. ARX uses a new form of resistance, a motor, and we pair that motor with computer software so that we can maximize the safety, effectiveness, and efficiency of your workouts. So you may be asking, okay, but how does ARX compare to weights? Traditional machines you see in gyms today are based on lifting metal weights and battling gravity. What people don't realize is that when you're forced to lift a static weight like this, one that doesn't adapt or change while you use it, you're underloading yourself rep after rep. And this unnecessarily limits your ability to make improvements. With ARX, we've taken a totally different approach. We removed weights and gravity from the equation altogether. Instead, ARX combines our patented motorized resistance with our custom computer software to provide you with the world's safest, most effective, and most quantified form of resistance training ever. When you train with ARX, you are training to your perfect level of resistance, both positively and negatively 100% of the time. No more guessing what weight to use. ARX does all of that for you, instantly and automatically. We'll also track and measure every second of every rep, so you can quantify all of your workouts to find out if you're improving and by exactly how much. Whether your goals are bigger muscles, increased strength, stronger bones, or just to look good in a bathing suit, ARX can help you achieve all of these and more, but do so in a fraction of the time it would take compared to traditional equipment. If you're looking for the most efficient, most effective, and most quantified piece of exercise equipment on the market today, then look no further than ARX.
Thanks, Mike. That all sounds really impressive. If you'd like to learn more about ARX, visit arxfit.com and mention that you heard about ARX on the High Intensity Business podcast to receive an exclusive deal of $500 off shipping and installation of your ARX machines. I just want to return to your what you were saying there about your consults with Mike. You started saying how you sort of hinted at your training changing. Last time we spoke, you had you were training every sort of 4 to 6 days, and you had like 6 different splits or something. Yeah,
it was a 3-way split.
Yep,
6 different 3-way split, but the exercises for the specific muscle groups were different on the A or B routine. So that's the easiest way to explain it.
Yeah,
I thought that was enough variation, but after my experiment.
Yeah, go on. Sorry, tell me, because you said you started productively doubting yourself, which I really thought was an interesting concept. So tell me, like, you started doubting yourself. What have you changed, and what do you think might be perhaps more effective for you now? Then?
Okay, let's start first with why I doubted myself.
Yeah.
Okay, this way. I posted on Instagram here and there, and I got a comment somewhere from Joshua Trentin, who you also know, and it was in a direction of never compare yourself with another. It's more about the about bodybuilding, right? And he also said, maybe you're not motivated enough. And it has to do with me. I will remember correctly, it was more me saying something like, genetics always rules. And he doubted that because you can also push harder. That's the easiest way to explain what happened. And that triggered something in me. So I thought, okay, maybe he's right. Maybe I'm just lazy. Who knows? And then came you with your podcast about bulking up. And I thought, maybe there are a few kilograms more of muscle for me in the pocket. But if you do, let me tell you this, if I kept walking out the way I did, and I expected more results, that would be nuts, right? Because I was doing that for years. And I wasn't dissatisfied, but I wanted to find out, is there more for me in it? And then you have to change things. There were a few things I remembered in a few days. Also the work of Brian Johnson, G-Reps. That's I had a few books of him, so I dusted them off and read them again. And some things made more sense for me, at least. And now I decided, firstly, to change some nutrition. I'm talking now about almost 18 months ago. Currently, I consume 4 times a day a meal. And that was actually 1 meal more as before, on average. And that's to spread the protein intake more efficient. Mm-hmm. Because I was eating a lot of protein at a few meals. And now I mostly have in the morning a protein meal. And that has to do with the way the protein synthase functions. And if you overnight have more breakdown than synthase, it's wise to get in some more protein in the morning. And it has also to do with my age. I'm 55 now. These factors that support muscle growth are more blunted the more you age, and I want to keep it upgraded. All that I do is I want actually somewhat more muscle mass, not for the aesthetic reasons, but for the health reasons. To have more, it's just like money, right? To save more money, you can use it in bad times, and my bad times will come over the years. But I want to have more saved in the muscle area. So it's an experiment. I took it more serious. But as I told you, I lost my job. There was a lot of stress, so it was not the right moment for changing much of my training. But nutrition-wise, I could do. And then after I had my contract for the Dutch rail company to work as a train conductor, I got more ease on my mind and started to change my workouts. And actually, I did that fairly fast. I experimented a bit with the feeling of G-reps, shorter range of motion, faster movement style. So you have to learn that again, these faster movements. And I did it freestyle, nothing special, not much of writing down the exact numbers. I just went by feel. I did that always anyway, but now it was a different feeling, and I just wanted to feel for myself, okay, is this stimulation or not? And I must say, you learn your body much better that way, and I don't have to rely on numbers anymore at the moment, right? And I'm happy with the results till now. That's a bit how it changed.
So has it worked then? Have you managed to increase your lean muscle mass?
Difficult to say. I have to go by view. Because I don't have the top-notch equipment to do so. It's very expensive. And even then, the experts are still discussing what's good and what's not. So let me tell you, if you gain a few kilos of muscle mass, which I haven't yet, but you would recognize it on your body, right? You don't have a certain number. You just look in the mirror and you can tell. And so that's my thought also. I look fuller on the outsides of the muscles. And that I think has to do with the G reps, because you are working the muscles different, more overloading in certain areas or parts of the movement. For instance, my quadriceps, I'm not genetically blessed with them, but now more in the upper region, they look fuller. It's not enough to show on a scale with kilos, of course. And so I have certain areas, the back, for instance, the same story. And my waist is shrinking, actually, because that can I feel on the belt I use on my working clothes. So something is happening positively. And the experience of the training is also less dull, let me tell it this way. That's why I call it all freestyle. But you have to be open-minded for it. It's a short version.
What was Josh's advice then? What he said he thought you were being lazy, but what did he...
Josh didn't give any advice.
Right.
But he triggered something in me. It was just short answers of him. I don't remember exactly. I commented on something like the older bodybuilders, and then at the 1900s or so, you know, these old pictures, probably pre-steroid area, and that's how a person can look. But I commented something like that's still not. I didn't want that to show up in a swimming suit on a stage, and him being a competitor told me something like, okay, but never compare yourself with somebody else. Make the best of yourself. And then it went back and forth. And in the end, it triggered me to ask myself, am I really lazy with once in the 4 to 6 days of a workout? Is there more in the pocket? That's actually what triggered me. And then from there, I started to think about it. So,
you know, you're
special of Joshua, but it's just something that happened, and I changed mine.
Yeah, you know, last time we spoke on the podcast, you know, you were always talking about area under the curve, and I know that that's no different now. Yep. And certainly your goal with this is to increase that area under the curve. But what if increasing your muscle mass doesn't do that? You know, like surely there's a law of diminishing returns, and do we really know that maximizing your muscle mass is actually going to correlate with more area under the curve? So it could be like a waste of energy, you know?
No, I don't. I think it's worth it.
Fair enough.
There are always these discussions, is it muscle mass or strength? Is strength more important? But I think if you lose enough muscle mass when you're older, the strength will go on also. And probably the people that are the healthiest and the longest livers are strong, but strong from themselves. So you can ask yourself, if you're not that strong and you make yourself stronger by exercise, will that help? I don't know. That's something for the experts. But I can tell you, if you have enough amino acids, that's muscle mass, right, to survive from if you get hospitalized, for instance, you're better off. Just yesterday, with this shitty coronavirus documentaries over the place on the television, it was on the news, a lady that was a lung specialist, and it was exactly that what we talked in the beginning of this podcast with older people. And they say what Doc McGuff, by the way, also told once before, if they are not able to get out of a chair, if they are that weak and they catch the virus, it's death row in a few days. They have to have enough muscle mass, specifically. That's what she said. Probably because she thinks that's also strength. but the tissue itself, there are amino acids. That's what's going to help you survive. Like burning victims need that. And that's a reason for me. Of course, I like the aesthetics, but I'm not going to wither about the calves being in accordance with my back or something like that. That's not important to me. But I want more muscle mass, trying to get it anyway, within reasonable time spanning in a week, just for the health reasons, to increase my account, my bank account of amino acids, so to speak. Yeah, that's how you can put it.
You know, you always, again, in previous conversations, you would talk about everything you do as regards to training and nutrition in the context of what does it look like in nature, you know? And, you know, with eating, you talked about that in terms of like, you know, in the hunter-gatherer context, we'd be fasting for long periods. We would eat once some days, sometimes we'd eat twice. And that being perhaps marrying up with the whole this catabolic anabolic balance, you know, that you want to go through in order to have a healthy body. Now, do you not think that increasing your meal frequency to 4 is a little bit, you know, could actually affect you negatively in that isn't in accordance with nature necessarily, and that actually might decrease your area under the curve because there's perhaps that catabolic anabolic relationship is off balance. That's just a hypothesis, you know.
I thought about that, of course. Let me put it this way: that would be if we lived in nature, indeed. But I said to myself, okay, we don't live anymore in that kind of nature. If I want something else, I have to make sure to have enough nutrients for recovery and eventually the growth I hope for. And it's still within a 12-hour time frame maximally. I eat healthy products. I live a healthy lifestyle for the rest. So maybe that helps. And then, of course, there's always a positive and a negative for something you want. I feel better with it. Let me tell you this. I feel better with it. I tried that for a long time, of course, and I believed in it. But then I asked, as I said to you before, I asked myself some questions to doubt my convictions.
So you feel better with a higher meal frequency?
Yeah. I have in the morning a protein meal, mostly a yogurt or quark, and I will even in the near future upgrade it with some whey protein and see how that works, just for convenience. I'm not that much of a big fan of powders, but if it helps, it helps. It's just experimenting. So at the moment, I'm a walking lab for myself to see.
What does the diet look like?
Actually, the same as it was before. I know something changed after our last podcast, and that's an increase in carb intake. But it's about 2 meals with about 100 grams of cooked rice, so that's not that much. And in one portion of my quark, I eat 2 times a day quark for the proteins. And in that, I have 3 or 4 pieces of dried fruit or strawberries in the summer. And that's about it. I had to do this because the humps of meat I was eating, it was getting a little bit expensive.
Sure.
And I have to eat a lot of it to feel satisfied from my meals. So I decided, okay, let's check my blood glucose, how that reacts. And if it's okay, I can afford myself to eat a little bit rice over the day and have a more fulfilling stomach and enjoyable of the meals. And certainly for if you go eating out, so in the social context, it can help. Still nothing dramatic, no potatoes or something like that. Just a little bit of rice. That's it. That's what I changed. And for the rest, it's, I guess I come about 230 230 grams of protein around a day for a body weight of 78 kilograms. So way too much, too many, but I like to eat the protein animal products. So
yeah, so just for listener, just for completeness, it's the rest of the plate is made up by animal products, isn't it? Eggs, meat, fish, cheese, that kind of
cheese,
thing.
Exactly, that kind of stuff.
No veggies.
If they get lost from one plate to the other and ended on my plate, I will eat them. But it's mostly if my wife cooks a meal like minced meat or something like that, she throws in some Italian vegetables. It's not worthwhile. I eat them. So I'm a bit more relaxed in that context as before, but it's also part of the experiment. I don't want to live too constrict. Still not drinking alcohol, but
good man.
Yeah,
I have a
that's
question.
how I think about it.
Well, say that again.
No, that's how I think about it right now. So it's not that dramatically different from the past. But to come back to your question, health-wise, there's still these anabolic, catabolic phases. I think there will be enough, and I'm doing well on it, and that's a sign. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's I did not expect that at all from you, actually. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out, and whether you change that again in the future. I had a question for you about training, actually, and it's in a my context right now is as you know, I've just had a son who's now 15 weeks, I think.
Okay.
And that's obviously amazing. And I really don't have the excuse that I don't get enough sleep, because I sleep in another room and I'm getting a good 7-8 hours. I'd say there is a certain amount of stress, particularly right now with everything that's going on, and with the baby and the business and everything like that. So in terms of my training, I've been obviously training from home, doing a lot of bodyweight stuff for a long time now. We were going to open the studio end of March, early April, but unfortunately, due to what's going on, that's now been obviously postponed. We literally have the MedX kit, en route. In fact, it might already be in Galway. So it's all very exciting. But who knows when we're actually get it up and running. So anyway, with all that said, I've been struggling with training lately, especially on the lower body with body weight, in terms of trying to really achieve a deep level of fatigue. And it's mainly mindset, because or mental, because as I'm doing it, I'm like, oh God, I don't feel as motivated. I feel drained. Maybe it's because of all those factors I just mentioned. And I'm just wondering, have you got any advice when it comes to a lower body routine that is, I don't know if easy is the right word, but it's easier to get to a deep level of fatigue, or any advice around mindset or anything like that?
Well, firstly, stress adds up, right? So you have to take that in account. Despite sleeping your 7 hours, there's still stress. You have your newborn, and there's a layer of stress above your head to take care of his future. That will always be there, subconsciously also. At least that's what I experienced from my since birth of my son, and it will never leave you. So that's something that's there. Then your nutrition intake. I don't know how that is at the moment. Fluid intake.
Fairly good. Yeah.
Okay.
Same as you.
So,
similar, carnivorous.
You have then your full body workout, or just?
At the moment, I'm doing 2 splits, and upper lower. I'm trying to train twice a week, but it's more like once a week at the moment.
Okay. And why once a week?
Just energy, time, motivation, all 3 things really.
So that's a mental aspect too.
Yeah, it's like, there'll be a day where I'm like, because you know how it is when you have kids. It's like there's no longer. It's like everything's scheduled, everything has to be planned, and trying to find time, because the thing is, I I'm at the moment obviously working very hard in a business during this challenging time to help my clients as much as possible and help them diversify and create content like this that's helpful and interesting and entertaining to people. And then when I finish this, I pretty much, I either work with Ash to help look after the baby or I take over, because in my mind, raising a child is harder than almost any job, and I see her do it because I work from home a lot. And I'm like, wow, I have it easy compared to you. And so anyway, all that said, I find that's really impacted my training, the energy I have for training. And it's sometimes I think, oh yeah, I've scheduled to train today. And then I just look at what's going on and be like, you know what? It's just not going to happen today, so let's push that to tomorrow. So that's why things end up once a week. But really, I could do twice a week. I just need to be better about doing it.
Anyway, good that you also take care of your child, because these are the moments you're building the real connection for later. That's very important. So don't skip on that. It's my advice. It's this, in this case, father-son relationship you will build up. It's not just to relieve your wife, but see also in that.
Of course, yeah.
And you don't get it back, so
Absolutely.
Take care of that. That's primary. But you're doing well, I guess. Then that's this. Yeah, you have to. In this case, you just have to plan it in your schedule, because if you wait for the good moment, they will never come. You have to make it a good moment to work out. So plan it and live toward it. Maybe raising something like 20 minutes earlier in the day will be an option for you. I don't know at what time you will raise from sleeping in the morning.
Yeah, I actually was inspired by you in a way, because I know that you told me that you don't do late nights once. And I was like, how interesting, because pre-Arthur coming along, I would stay up till, 10, 11. I normally try and get some reading in. And, it'd be hard for me to get up early, like as early as I'd like to, like 5. But I've got a great routine now, which is working so well, where Ash, the baby obviously needs to go to bed at like 7, 8 p.m. And so Ash is often going to bed to obviously feed the baby and put him down and all that stuff by sort of, around that time. And so she's often staying in there. And so I'm kind of synced my bedtime with them. So I'll go in at say 9 and I might do a little bit of reading, but then I get up and I'm ready to go at like 4, 5 a.m. And then I get up and I just crack on. And the amount of stuff I've got done by like 10, 11 a.m. is amazing. So that's worked really well for me. And I'm actually a lot happier with a routine like that. And I always before, when you first said that to me, I tend to get to bed early. This sounds like such a trivial thing, but to me it was like, wouldn't that be boring? And that's kind of how I thought about it at the time. But now I get it, in this context.
This also has changed for me, because I work in shifts. So I have also to work out in the afternoons sometimes. And I've had an early shift. Sometimes I'm raising at 3:30 or so in the morning. I go to work.
Wow.
Of course, at noon I'm home. Then I take a nap, 20 minutes to 40 minutes, depending. Drink my coffee when I race. Then wait an hour, and then I go to my workout or do my workout. And amazingly, I function better in the afternoon and on the intensity side. So I can endure more. I'm more motivated probably as compared to the morning. Probably it won't make much of a difference, but that's what I feel. So you have to plan for yourself, to come back to your question, what works best for you, what's possible, and then see, can you upgrade it regarding the time of moment of working out. And then, of course, you see, I wanted at the moment, like you did with your want to bulking up, and your questions you had. That's actually what I want now, more or less.
In that now.
Yeah,
go on.
And but then I also made the decision, okay, if I work out sometimes 3 times, 4 times a week now, if I want to do that, I also have to support my system, my body. So I have to make sure to get enough sleep, enough rest, and enough proper nutrition. And then the right mindset. Otherwise, I'm digging a deep hole by just doing one side of the coin. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, I do.
So that motivational aspect, you have to pull yourself through it. And often, it's my experience, you can feel a little bit harsh and think, oh, okay, but just do it. And then just the moment you start your workout, decide for yourself, okay, now we're going to kick it really much harder than before. I'm not a lazy pussy. I'm going to do it. Like that. That's what is running through my mind. And then there's nothing else on my mind anymore. And you always will have fluctuations, good and very good workouts. But there should never be a bad one, because then you have to ask yourself, why did you do it? Were you not enough recovered, or something else on your mind? Can happen. That will pass and move on. Then regarding your exercises, what do you do for your lower body?
Yeah, so I've been a bit freestyle too lately. I do. What did I do last time? I started with a prone trunk extension. Went into a wall sit. Then single-legged squats, using the door for balance. And then straight into unilateral hip raises. And then abduction, time static contraction, abduction. And then I finished with, that was the finish. And I usually do neck lateral, time static contraction or extension and flexion beforehand. Yeah. So that's the routine, but it's tough. Like I couldn't honestly say that I get to failure with hip raises. The abduction is hardcore. That's really quite effective, actually. Single-legged squats, I definitely hit failure. The wall sit, no. I don't know anyone apart from James Still who goes to failure with wall sits.
I don't do them very well also. But single leg squats. Do you think it's really hitting your quads, or more a technique thing where you fail?
I think you're probably right. I think I could probably do split squats or something else that's more effective.
Tell you what, do you have something like a barbell or something else for weight?
All I have at home, I have dumbbells.
Yeah. So that's
I have dumbbells. Yeah.
So that's resistance. Mm-hmm. So you hold your dumbbell, for instance, or weight plate in front of your chest against your body to stabilize. Mm-hmm. And then you can do just your lunges in some way or form. And then not extending all the way up. Just keep in the lower range. So say 90 degrees in your knee and then upwards. And you do it in the beginning fairly slowly so you can feel where you lose tension. So you have to keep that high tension. That's the range of motion where you stay in. The weaker you get, a little bit higher you go. And that probably is best if you do that after the abduction and adduction. So you're already fatigued in those muscles. Mm-hmm. That's the way to do it.
Awesome.
I experienced with that a deep burn in my legs that enabled me to walk for 5 minutes. My last vacation in Spain last year. At some point after a few days, I felt the urge to do something, workout. I didn't find a gym, but they had those equipment around on the walking area around the beach.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I found one place. I just hold a sort of a device that looked like a big kettlebell, but it was around the pole. But I could move it upwards and downwards. It was resistance. And I did these lunges. And it was really, it was something that shows you, I could leg press about these and these kilos at home. And here I wimpy pimpy with some resistance and just lunges, and I'm almost crying. It was really, really deep in the muscles. I couldn't walk. It was irritating. You know that feeling when you sit, the muscles are irritating. When you walk, the muscles are irritating.
Yeah. That's so
at some
annoying
point, I
when
wanted
you've
to go
got
away,
a
and
newborn
at
as
some
well.
yeah. So that's what I would experiment with. But what it comes down to is exercises that enable you to feel tension all the way and keep the tension, and then exhaust yourself as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I'm going to give that a go. Ars, this has been really enjoyable as always. I love to go on, but I've got another appointment in 15 minutes. Otherwise, we would definitely have so much more to talk about. What's the best way for the listeners to find out more about you these days?
Instagram is mostly dead. I don't post anymore there.
Mm-hmm. Why is that?
But I give comments. Why? Because I'm not that the high tech and social media person.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point I asked myself, what the fuck am I doing here? Always posting the same pictures, same comments. I mean, everything I had to say, one can find there. There's nothing new anymore. And I got bored of it. And now it gives me sort of peace of mind. At some point I was just outside, whether at work or with my wife, walking or whatever, enjoying a coffee somewhere. And always was on my mind, could I post this? Should I make a picture of that and post it? I already had the comments in my mind from what to tell. That's sick, man. I think you have to detox from that. And so I did.
Yeah.
So, but it's still available. But not available. I closed it also for public views, because you never know what the Dutch rail company will look for, and I don't want to get troubles with that anymore. It's not that it is the case, that it could be, but you never know what will be posted there as comments, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're great with comments on the blog. So would it be okay if people had follow-up questions for you to reply on the blog? Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I just wonder, because you yourself have a great podcast, but there's not that much comment. So that's a reason why I sometimes post something.
Well, no, I appreciate that. Do you know what? If you look back at when I did more episodes that are more general like this, I get tons of comments. So, there are posts back, episodes I've done with Doug, episodes I've done with, Borg Fagali, that I've got over 100 comments. It's the business topics that have a smaller audience. And so they don't tend to get as many comments, or maybe that it's a selection bias. Maybe those individuals are less interested in commenting, and that's totally fine. I'm not concerned about that, because at the end of the day, my business serves the hit studio owner, and that's why I create that content. I don't create it for comments. I like getting comments, and when you leave a comment out, I'm always excited to read it, but it's not my primary metric that I'm going for. So that's why, if I wanted to, I could go and create loads of, general hit content, and I'm sure there'd be lots of comments. But, I still like doing episodes occasionally like this with people like you. And I know that they do generally create conversation in the comments, which is great. So, I would encourage those listening, if you've got questions for Art, related to training or hit or anything, then please do post that in the comments. And to find the blog post for this episode and download the PDF transcript as well, please go to highintensitybusiness.com and search for episode 258. And until next time, thank you very much for listening.
Discover how to achieve your health and fitness goals, become a great personal trainer, and build a successful, high-intensity training business. Check out highintensitybusiness.com. highintensitybusiness.com.
This episode is brought to you by ARX, the most innovative, efficient, and effective all-in-one exercise machines I have ever seen. I was really impressed with my ARX workout. The intensity and adaptive resistance was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I love how the machine enables you to increase the negative load to fatigue target muscles more quickly, and I love how the workouts are effortlessly quantified. The software tracks maximum force output, rate of work, total amount of work done, and more in front of you on screen, allowing you to compete with your previous performance to give you and your clients real-time motivation. The ARX uses a computer-controlled motor to give you the exact amount of resistance your clients need 100% of the time. This means that the resistance can never become dangerous, is intuitive and simple to use, and can provide you with all of the results you and your clients are looking for in a fraction of the time. ARX is highly effective and efficient in delivering all of the benefits of exercise, including increased strength, muscle mass, cardiovascular conditioning, bone mineral density, and injury recovery. As well as being utilized by many high-intensity trainers to deliver highly effective and efficient workouts to their clients, ARX comes highly recommended by world-class trainers and brands, including Bulletproof, Tony Robbins, and Ben Greenfield Fitness. To find out more about ARX and get $500 off install when you place an order, please go to arxfit.com and mention HIB, that's High Intensity Business, in the How Did You Hear About Us field. So again, to get $500 off install when you place an order, head on over to arxfit.com and enter HIB in the How Did You Hear About Us field.